Finally, the last bit on the podcast. Yesterday evening, fairly late at night, I was a bit bored really watching the Super Bowl, and I didn't really kind of tweet this out to bait people. It was more of a case of just to see what people's thoughts were. And maybe Virat Kohli was the wrong person to choose because he's married. And I don't necessarily, why am I saying I don't necessarily? I don't condone in any way, shape, or form extramarital activities. And anyway, I tweeted, do you think cricket would be mainstream now if Taylor Swift had started dating Kohli instead of Kelsey? Fairly well documented. I think anybody that's existed over the last 6 months is probably aware that Taylor Swift is dating an American football player called Travis Kelsey. And it caused a bit of a flap. It caused a little bit of a stir. A few people, how many people have seen it? 144,000 people have seen it. 55 people have kind of quote retweeted it, kind of going, rubbish, cricket is mainstream, it's the second most popular sport in the world, blah, 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 all this other kind of stuff, which is all incredibly good and relevant points. But what do you think? Because I sent you the screenshot. I think it was from Bruce. Was it Bruce that said it? Bruce. Great name. Probably an Australian man or maybe an English man. Couldn't tell you whether he's a real person or not because his picture's a cow. But anyway, he's kind of questioned, and I can't be bothered to go back to it because Twitter or X isn't really the greatest place to have an open discussion, is it? People get quite militant with what they say on there. But I do want to talk about it. And I mean, do you think it is mainstream? Do you think cricket's mainstream? First opinion, without giving any kind of, do you just go, yeah, cricket's in the mainstream?
Yeah, I would say it is.
Okay.
Yeah. When you think of the top followed sports in the world,
yep.
Generally, this is my own view, upbringing, bias that's probably come out in this. In terms of team sports specifically, you would say obviously football, then probably cricket and rugby union from the part of the country that I'm from. And you look at like how school curriculums and stuff reflect that, and you see that cricket's obviously a sport that is played in the summer. Yes, cricket is in the mainstream.
Okay.
I would 100% say it is. I'm going to get up the definition of mainstream.
Okay. I like it. Dan as a cricket fan, 100% agrees with you. 100%, because I love it. Like, I've had so many amazing opportunities come through cricket. I love playing it. I love hanging out with my teammates. I've met some really, really cool people from doing it. And I think it's quite a fun way to spend an evening watching cricket or playing cricket, having a couple of beers with your mates in the sunshine is just good fun. But the bit where I get stuck in, and have you got a definition of mainstream there that you want to just throw out into the podcast now?
It says, noun, the ideas, attitudes, or activities that are shared by most people and regarded as normal or conventional. Therefore, in my opinion, if it says shared by most people, if you went out onto the streets and did a questionnaire with 100 people and 51 of them said cricket is in the mainstream, I would be like, yes, there we have it, case in point, majority.
Okay.
That's how I'm viewing that.
It's hard. You can't argue with it at the end of the day. I think it would very much depend as to where you ask that question. I think there will obviously be some countries in the world that you would get 100% response rates. I don't know whether you would get 50% response rate if you ask that question in various parts of the UK, mind you. And obviously cricket is only really played in a handful of countries, to a level of which you could kind of, I think, begin to call it mainstream. So maybe it's the wrong kind of question, and maybe the answer back to Bruce is yes, cricket is in the mainstream. Is it cool though? Is cricket cool?
Again, it's just, I'd say it's cooler than it
Than what it
was.
was 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, is how I would probably describe it.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that there was a narrative, like growing up. I don't know if you were the same. Like, it's not a very sexy sport. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go out all day and you go and play that. Like when you could be playing a 60-minute game of netball or basketball, however long they last. I'm sure it's something like that. You'd rather go and spend your day playing cricket and then eating someone's sandwiches and scones at half time, and you could go and play, but actually the only active part that you're doing is fielding because you've got first bowler and you don't bowl. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's definitely cooler than it was.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I can't argue with that point. I don't necessarily know whether that makes it cool though, and this is the bit where I get really stuck on. And I think the reasons why I don't think it's cool is because a lot of the top echelon of the mainstream do not engage with the sport at all. And I realize the fact that that statement there is going to be really different depending on where you are in the world. Because if you've grown up in India, nobody really gets much bigger than people like Bumrah, Kohli, Tendulkar, Rohit Sharma. Similar in Pakistan when you think about Shahid Afridi, when you think about Shaheen, Baba, people like that. But when you come away from that area of the world, and I think I'd be brave enough to say that the aspiration for sport is to try and replicate what America does with their kind of showpiece events. That's why we've had Cricket World Cup finals when we've had halftime entertainment, and that's why we've had drone light shows, and that's why we've built a stadium that's 120,000 people. Like we want that kind of the razzmatazz, because I think that's what sport is shooting for. I think it wants the Super Bowl. Like it's that to me is the peak of kind of sports entertainment, if that makes sense, which is kind of where we are now with cricket. However, when you think about the Western mainstream, and I'm not saying that is the only mainstream, but you don't get engagement with it. You just don't. Like, people don't talk about cricket. I know there's been pictures of Rihanna at Lord's, and there's been pictures of Katy Perry talking to Jeff Boycott. There are examples of this. When was the last time like you saw a celebrity getting pictured wearing an Oval Invincible shirt, or a Melbourne Stars jersey, or a Sussex Sharks top, or whatever? It doesn't happen. It really it doesn't exist, and I think that's where I get on this part where I go, it isn't what the vast majority of the population in the world would describe as cool.
Yeah, when I think of like photos that you see of other kind of global superstars and how they can be linked to other sports, other brands, things like that. Like LeBron James, obviously he's a massive Liverpool fan, for example. Like, I know this is LeBron James we're talking about, like arguably one of the biggest sporting stars of the past decade, century, probably.
But we are talking about the second biggest sport in the world, Joe, in cricket.
Yeah, correct. Like, it's other than like those Indian players in their own countries. Like, I don't know if Kohli goes to America and someone spots him, is he gonna be flooded with all these Americans around him in the same way that, like, yeah, LeBron James, for example, coming over here, or going to who knows where, like
anywhere.
Everyone knows who he is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't. Yeah, I guess it's not as
Did you see the picture of Virat Kohli sat on the Southern Rail train whilst they were touring last year by himself, reading the newspaper, having a cup of coffee?
No, I didn't, but I
There
feel
you
like
go.
I want to see that.
There you go. That exists. That picture exists, and that I think is what you've just said there. Are people going to flood up to him? I mean, apparently not on a Southern Rail train between, I don't know, London and Brighton, for example, or wherever he might have been going. It's just, I think as well, like a lot of the reaction to that tweet that I put out, it kind of says to me as to why as well that kind of cricket hasn't really kind of flourished in the mainstream is because a lot of people don't make it a very welcoming place. I've kind of put that out there, and there's lots of different ways to engage with that without kind of going, it's the second most popular sport in the world. I know it's the second most popular sport in the world. There's other ways to kind of engage with comment. There's other ways to welcome people in. And it's almost like, well, we're incredibly offended that anybody could think critically about our sport. Like, no, open yourselves up a little bit and try and think about, like, say Taylor Swift had started dating, like Travis Kelce before this wasn't exactly like one of the best, but wasn't like the biggest name in the sport. So say it wasn't Coley, say it was, I don't know, say it was who would be playing a lot of Test cricket at the moment that's really good at what
Kane
they do.
Williamson.
Kane Williamson, there you go. Great example. I'm sure he's happily married. I'm sure he's got lovely children. He has a lovely family life in New Zealand, in Taranga, doesn't want to get involved with this stuff. But I don't see it having the same impact. I just don't. I don't see that kind of that everybody going, well, we're all going to watch cricket now. Like elf bars have popped up out of nowhere. People aren't just going to suddenly walk around like streets of Portsmouth, like spinning up kind of Slazenger cricket balls that they've picked up from the petrol station in the street because like they've seen some celebrity doing it. Like there was a period of time, wasn't there? And you'll know this more than I do because I reckon I'm probably the most unfashionable person on the planet. But that people were wearing like cable knit cricket jumpers as like a fashion item. But I would be prepared to bet that they weren't wearing them because they were cricket cable knit jumpers.
No, absolutely not. They were definitely a fashion item, like over the past probably 2 years. We might see them come around this summer. But again,
Maybe.
like you say, that's not because of the success of the Ashes and the marketing campaign that was put on for the Ashes last year, you know?
No.
It's, yeah. Oh, cricket isn't cool, everybody.
It's a bit sad. It's a bit, but I love it though. But I love it, and everybody else listening to this loves it. You love it. People that watch it love it. People that play it love it, and that's probably the most important thing. Like I love a lot of crap that is niche, if that makes sense. Like I listen to country music. That's not particularly popular in the UK, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay, and I quite like the fact that not everybody likes cricket. It's quite nice. It's quite nice to have like your own little thing that kind of makes you a little bit unique. And probably being a person that wants to spend their Saturday afternoon stood in a field in the middle of nowhere playing cricket for 8 hours makes you a little bit niche and unique, doesn't it? And it's nice, but I don't really know what it can do other than kind of being. I do feel like it has to be a lot more welcoming as a sport. And I do feel like that's where it's massively let itself down over the last probably 30 years, if not more so than that. And it probably cycles back around to the reports that we've had come out in the UK over the last over the last year or so. But I don't think it's exclusive to gender, race, orientation, anything like. I think there's a lot of like ability shaming in cricket as well. And I think that's a massive thing that turns people off straight away. That if you aren't actually brilliant at it, you don't have to look very far to find a few people that are prepared to come up to you and tell you that you're not very good at it. And I think at that point there, then that becomes a massive turn off as well. So, and I don't think that matters who you are. Like if your cover drive isn't perfect, and it's sledging, it's allowed, and it is. I get it, but like you can't play cricket if you're the only bugger left in the country that wants to play.
Yeah, correct. There's got to be some kind of like backup and support and reinforcement that it is good for people and communities and to play and the spectator element of it. Like, don't get me wrong, the entertainment side of it I think is definitely something that's grown in the past. Yeah, from when I was a youngster, like that bit's definitely been added to the sport to try and make it more appealing to new fans in particular. And things like that. Like I think it's very traditional and almost set in its ways a little bit before. But I guess, yeah, the emergence of like white ball cricket's obviously made it way more appealing and stuff like that. But I don't think it will ever be what football is, what basketball stars are in the US. Even like some tennis stars and golf players, like it's mad how kind of global they are. And even the F1 now, you look at that and how big that's got. Can cricket reach the same height?
I think it needs to. I think it really needs to open itself up, and I think cricket needs to allow people to enjoy cricket the way they want to enjoy it, rather than. And I agree with you. I think a lot of the work that has been done with regards to the new formats and the excitement and baseball and the coverage of it, I think has made a big difference, and I think has got people talking about it. But I still think there's an element of this is our sport and you'll enjoy it the way we want you to enjoy it, rather than, yeah, of course, it's an open door. Come on in, like come in, ask questions, create stuff about the sport. Let's really try and kind of showcase this as something incredible that you and I and everybody listening know of what cricket can be and what values it can bring to people as well. But I think it's still a very, very closed club, even with the work that it has been done. I still think it's like, this is cricket. You will enjoy cricket the way that we kind of allow you to enjoy cricket, but we won't really kind of make a great deal of effort to kind of go any further beyond that, if that makes sense. Like I was talking, this will be the last point I make on it, Joe, but I was talking to Mike at World Class Willow and talking about different types of wood that could be used for a cricket bat, for example, potentially to bring the cost down. I learned a lot about willow whilst I was down there, but there isn't that much of it in comparison to the demand right now. And I think a lot of that is to do with like climate change. It's to do with the fact that not as much of it was planted at the point that cricket was in a bit of a slump and all this other stuff. But I don't know whether you've noticed, there's quite a lot of trees around the world in lots of different wood that could, as I've proven with the thing that I got from B&Q, can be shaped to make a cricket bat. And I'm sure people that actually do good things are kind of better at it. But they're not allowed. Like, it's not allowed. You can't have like an aspen cricket bat, for example. Like it wouldn't meet the kind of the regulations in place for it. What does it matter? Like, what does it matter if some shop down the road or a bat maker's going, well, I'll make half a dozen aspen cricket bats for like a third of the price, so that like Jimmy, Tim, Dave, Jessica, Katie can go to their junior nets with a cricket bat, rather than kind of go, oh, I don't think I can justify 250 quid on a willow cricket bat. Mental.
Yeah, like that in itself is crazy. Like the fact that that's even a barrier for people to
open the doors,
as you say, pick up a piece of wood and get started.
Yeah.
Like very like I guess it's one of those things that's mentioned as kids are growing up and they're choosing their different sports and why their mum and dads don't want them to play or whatever. Okay, could be because they don't have enough money to afford the equipment for the child to play, and all the other costs that come with it, the subs, the match fees, the training fees, etc. I know you get it in other sports as well, but it's probably a lot cheaper. As I think we have said before, like you can get a pair of football boots that are probably second hand for, I don't know, 10, 15 quid if you're a kid. Like, that's very affordable, and if there is a way to bring the cost down, which could be something like using different wood that is still effective, surely there's a gap in the market for that. Like, why would you want to stop people from getting more children at the entry level and even adults into playing the sport? It's bonkers.